Hey everybody. So in this video I wanted to talk a little bit about something cool I discovered with what you can do with virtual rulers. Now before, when I talked about virtual rulers, and you've probably heard me rave about them a lot because they're really cool, I talked about how you can basically create an analog experience on this digital canvas. Like if I went and I created a line, for example, I can treat it, provided I have it turned on, I can treat it like I had a ruler on paper and I could draw along it. Now that gives me a lot more freedom to create some line weight when I put down a line, as opposed to just using the things like the straight line tool or the curve tool, where it would just be a very fixed width thing. But what I thought was really cool was discovering that I can also create things like sound effects. And it wasn't something that I thought about until I was working on a page and I wanted to use a particular font, but if you've played around with the lettering, you notice that you can create some good dialogue stuff, and you could also use various sound effects. And from the materials folder, like you see here, there's a bunch of Japanese sound effects. And what you would do here is you just kind of drag it onto the page, and you could do a basic transform of the sound effect. But that's kind of it. And when I was looking up some stuff on Adobe Illustrator and how they work with lettering to do sound effects, I saw how they were working with paths, and that you could kind of transform the paths and that kind of stuff. And I was wondering if that was possible to do that in Manga Studio. And it turns out, yes, you can. So I thought I would use this video to show how you can make your own sound effects. So I have these set of just some generic sound effects. I decided to just kind of see what I could design. I've never really lettered before, outside of using the text tool and stuff. So I thought I would try to come up with some ideas for sound effects. And what I would do then is I would just basically just trace around one of the sound effects. And I'll go for this BAM one here. So I'll zoom in. I'm going to reduce the opacity of this. And then I have this ruler layer, or layer with a ruler already set on this. And you select your ruler tool, and you can go with the curve ruler, and then you can choose whether you want to use the spline, quadratic Bezier, or cubic Bezier curve. And there's 3 different ways of laying down a curved ruler on the page. I'm going to use the spline, and all I'm going to do here is just trace around this B here. So I start here, work my way up, and as you notice, as I'm making endpoints, the line curves. I'm at this corner here to kind of make more of a sharp turn, because if I don't do this, it's just going to do this really roundabout curve like that. I'm actually just going to create an endpoint right there, and then just trace along like so. And you'll notice there's this little rounded area here. To fix that, I'm going to go to the control point tool, and you notice as I hover, all those endpoints that I placed down appear. And all I would do is just kind of reposition. And if you hit along the line here, you'll notice that the cursor changes to a triangle with a plus. That's how you can add an endpoint. So I'll just click one right here, and then just kind of put those together to give me a nice sharp corner there. And then I can just kind of go through and tweak the positioning of the curve that I created. And I may sometimes will just close that out so I can kind of see how the curve looks. And then I can kind of tweak and give this a bit more of a curve and see what works and what doesn't work. Add another endpoint here if I wanted to kind of smooth this out further. And that's a good basic idea of where I want to go with this B, for example. So I jumped ahead and finished up the rulers here. And I'm going to hide the sketch that I did so you can see how the rulers now look. Now if you'll notice, each segment here is its own separate element. The exclamation is 2 elements, the M is 1 element, the A is 2 elements, the B is 3 elements. And so when you are ready to use this ruler on your page, you're going to have to select each one individually. So to do that, come up to the object selector tool, and it may be easier, and this is just personal preference, click the inside first and hold down the shift key, and you'll select multiple elements. And just click along the path of the ruler like so. And you'll know each segment is highlighted when you notice that you can see all the endpoints. Then it's just a matter of copying and then opening up your new canvas. I have one right here ready to go. All I do is edit, paste, and there's my ruler. To adjust the positioning of the ruler on the canvas, I'm going to stick with the object selector tool, and you'll notice if I select along the border, you'll see this arrow, and this allows me to move it. Any of the endpoints here will allow me to adjust it, like resize, like so. And this point here will rotate. So here's where I feel like using the rulers to create your sound effect can be really helpful for you, because using the rulers gives you, much like I was showing with the straight ruler before, gives you a little more control over the line weight you want to put on. And unlike just putting down a text tool and trying to transform it that way, you can actually transform how the text looks. Because I drew these rulers like this doesn't mean I have to keep the sound effects this way. To show that, all I have to do is like deselect, and I'm going to just select the B, like so. And I can just resize that, reposition. And here's a really cool thing to keep in mind. Coming over to the Tool Properties palette, click on the Operation drop-down list, and you'll see the various ways that the Object Selector tool can work. Currently, it's set to Control Point and Scale Rotate, and that means that you can do the scale rotation and you can adjust the points here. I'm going to switch it to Free Transform, and you'll notice that the endpoints disappear. And that's okay, because what we're going to do is just skew the shape of the ruler. And now I'm going to select the A and do the same thing. And I'm even going to overlap them. And I'll do the same thing with the M. So using the virtual rulers as a lettering guide or sound effects guide of sorts can give you a lot more freedom to design the sound effects however you want. So you can create like a basic sound effect and then really jazz it up like I'm doing here. And if you want, say I want to have multiple exclamation points, I'm going to copy and paste and move, and I can transform those to make it look a little different. And there we go. Now I have my sound effect kind of set up nicely. I'll change this up a little bit. The next thing for me to do is just grab my pen. I'll switch to black. And I'll switch to my G pen, and I'm just going to draw right along the sound effect that I created. And I'm going to draw light here and heavy here just to show that you can. And now I'll draw the A. And I'll draw the M, and I'll draw the M behind the A. And there we go. Now I've traced out my sound effect. And if I want to like hide the ruler temporarily, come over to the Layers palette, click on the icon here, right click, and deselect Show Ruler. And there you go. Now there's my sound effect. And the cool thing is I can come in and maybe freehand a few things here, like add a bit more shadow to the top here, switch to transparent and etch away stuff I don't want. And if I want to have the ruler again, I would just click and it would bring up the ruler. And just because I showed you one way of using something that I hand wrote, doesn't mean you're limited to that. If you have a particular sound effects font that you like to use in other art programs and would like to use it in Manga Studio but make a ruler, just type out the sound effect you want in that font using the text tool, and then trace over it with the curve ruler, and then you have a ruler all set to go that you can just paste onto your page and tweak it and adjust it and make it a little more than just like a stock font. And that pretty much covers this video. I thought this was something you might find interesting, especially if you're a professional letterer and want to have something a bit more organic looking to your work. So I hope that you found this video helpful and have fun playing around with these virtual rulers. I'll see you around.